Welcome to the channel and welcome to episode 6 of my solo play Grimdark Future campaign, where I play both armies myself. I'm not using the AI rules, just trying to play both sides as objectively as I can against each other. In this episode we return to the devastated streets of the capital in Novus Chestrensis Prime. The Human Defence Forces have been utterly driven back from the capital. It is now under Orc control. But the HDF have sent forward observers in, special operatives, to keep an eye on the situation in the capital, and they are reporting sounds of gunfire coming from the city. Unbeknownst to the HDF and their forward observers, are unable to ascertain this at the moment, the Soul Snatcher cult from Delving Creek has mined under the planetary ocean system. It must have taken them generations to do, a planned generations in the making, but they have now come up and burrowed up through the surface and come out in the capital city. The Orcs are reacting to this imminent danger, and battle ensues once more in the blasted city remains. Here we have the forces of the Soul Snatcher cult. They are being led by Archmage Karlov. He's a cult leader, he's a psychic, and he's got a close combat weapon and a pistol. Along with him is a unit of 5 neophytes, the Blessed Initiates. In there we've got 4 rifles and a mining laser. Over towards the left of the screen we've got the Jackals, a unit of 3 minion bikers. They've all got shotguns and one of them has also got a heavy hammer. Behind the Jackals we've got Grinder Truck Gamma 4. It's obviously a grinder truck. It's got a heavy machine gun and a heavy mining laser. In the centre at the back we've got a unit of 5 Acolytes, the Blessed Sons. 2 of them have got heavy cutters, the other 3 have all got mutant claws, one of them has got a regular pistol and the other 2 with mutant claws have got flamethrower pistols. At the top right of the screen we've got the Holy Ones, a unit of 5 Soul Snatchers, and then in the bottom right of the screen we've got the latest additions to the force, the Darklings, a unit of 5 mutant brutes. One of them has got a pick hammer and the rest all have heavy picks. And that totals 1040 points of Soul Snatcher cults.
Boss Brainbasher's back. He's an Orc leader with a twin carbine, an ultra claw and an attack beast. He's also a master at shooting frenzies, so him and his lads get relentless when they shoot. Brainbasher's boys are an Orc mob of 10, they go with the boss. They's all got carbines. There's Oddgit, he's odd because he's a psychic and he's a git, so he's called Oddgit. At the back we've got the Runts, 10 goblins, and then last we've got the Fly Boys, some jetback orcs with carbines and close combat weapons.
And that's 495 points. The reason there's so few of them is because they keep winning, so they only get 50 points for reserves. But they also keep having units die, so that's why we changed it, so we're not doing insta-death anymore. A unit misses D3 games and loses all of their XP if they get killed in the post-game sequence. They've currently got 2 units that are sitting out this game. They've got a unit of commandos, another Orc mob with pistols and close combat weapons. So after this game, those 2 units will be back in the army. There's also more than 500 points of difference between this army and the Soul Snatcher cults, and for every full 50 points you get an underdog bonus, so they're going to get 10 underdog bonuses, and you can use an underdog bonus to modify a dice roll by plus or minus 1, and that could be either your own or the enemy's, so hopefully that will make up for their lack of numbers. Okay, we're set up, and yet again the Soul Snatcher cult won the deployment roll-off. That's all 3 of their games they've ended up going first, but we'll come back to that in a second. We have rolled 4 objectives. We've got 4, so they are in a line across the centre of the table. So that one a little bit closer into the middle from the edge, the one on the other end closer in, quite close to the edge. But yes, Soul Snatcher cult won the deployment roll-off, and as before the only unit they could put down was the grinder truck. They have deployed the mutant brutes inside the truck, so then onto the Orcs deployment. we've got Boss Brainbasher and his boys. Try and get the camera to focus, there we go. And essentially everything's on the table. So Boss Brainbasher and his boys are deployed as a single unit. Oddgit has deployed with the goblins, and I contemplated putting the jetpack orcs into ambush, but I figured we're so small on units, we probably need as much on the table at the start as we possibly can. So they are deployed on the top floor of this ruin. For the Soul Snatcher cults, we've got the bikes over on their left flank, our right, relatively speaking. In the centre, we have got Archmage Karlov with his retinue, and also the acolytes in front of him. You've seen the truck, and then we've got the Soul Snatchers on the extreme flank. So as I say, the Soul Snatcher cult won the deployment roll-off, so they will get the first activation in the first turn, but before that we need to find out what their special objectives are for this game. Special objective for the Soul Snatcher cult. 1. Mastery. 1 friendly unit in each table quarter at the end of the game. Right. And for the orcs, 3. Casting. At least 1 attempt to cast or block spells per round. Just as well I've got Oddgit with them. At the start of the first turn, is there going to be a random event on a 5+? No. I nearly forgot to do the scout moves for the Soul Snatcher cults, which is one of their main things, so just as well I picked up on that. The bikes have rushed forwards onto objective 2, and when I say rush, yeah, as in they've moved forwards with their scout move. The acolytes have made it onto objective 3, and the Soul Snatchers have made it onto this objective over on the extreme flank. Karlov and his retinue are staying put in the shelter of those ruins for now. For the first activation for the Soul Snatcher cults, the grinder truck has rushed forwards. For the first activation for the orcs, we're going to start things off with Oddgit and the goblins. Oddgit is going to try and cast a psychic spell. He's going to go for Warpath, which is a 4+, but he's psychic 1, so it goes off on a 3+. And true to form, he rolls a 1, and I can't use any underdog bonuses on that because a natural 1 always fails, and even then I could only modify it by 1, so a 2 would still have failed. And now Oddgit and the goblins are going to rush forwards. The jackals have advanced, consolidating their position on objective 2, and they're going to shoot at Oddgit and the goblins. Now Oddgit and the goblins are most definitely in cover. There is less than 50% of the unit visible to the shooting unit. So ordinarily minion bikers are quality 5, so this will be hitting on 6s, 6 shots. And they all miss. And the jetpack orcs swoop down towards the jackals for the orcs activation. The Soul Snatchers have advanced, again consolidating their position on that objective. Brainbasher and his boys have advanced. They're going to shoot at the acolytes, who they can just about see in that ruin, and it goes without saying that the acolytes are going to get cover. So 3 of the orcs are out of range because they're only 18-inch with the carbines, but this is going to be a total of 18 shots. 6s will result in further shots because of Brainbasher's relentless ability. Got to find a space big enough to roll the dice now. Now then, there's quite a few 5s there. I need to check the wording for relentless and also the underdog bonuses. Right, so relentless only works on natural unmodified 6s, so there are 2 6s there, so those will be hits and will generate extra shots. For the underdog bonuses, I can only use 1 on each dice roll, so I can take a 5 and turn it into a 6, but because it's not a natural 6, that will not generate another shot. But for now, we'll take one of the 5s and we'll turn it into a 6, and then we'll tidy things up and roll 2 more shots. So 2 more shots for the 2 natural 6s. No, so 3 hits. These will be 5s to save. That's 2 4s and a 5, And because this is a different dice roll, I can spend another underdog bonus to turn that 5 into a 4. And then 3 of the acolytes will die, which means they'll then need to take a leadership test, a morale test. They are quality 4+. That's a 4, so they're not pinned, but 3 of them do die. There's only 2 of them left. And the 2 remaining acolytes have consolidated their position on that objective. And I just realised that morale test, I could have turned that into a fail, because they're quality 4+, I rolled a 4, I could have turned it into a 3 using an underdog bonus. But I think at this stage it's not going to make too much difference right here, right now, whether or not they pass that morale test or not. You never know, it might come back to bite the orcs, but let's find out later, shall we? Archmage Karlov is going to try and cast Hypnosis. This will go off on a 5+, but he's Psychic 1, so it'll be a 4+, which fails. And if it had gone off, it would have given 2 friendly units within 12 inches +1 to their defense next time they take hits. But now, he and his unit are going to advance, and now they're going to put their shots down into Brain Basher and his boys. There's only 2 of the rifles in range. One rifle is out of range and the mining laser has only got an 18-inch range. So this will be 3 shots hitting on 4s. That's 2 hits. And we can't modify those down. A, because they could only be modified down to 5s, which would hit anyway, and a natural 6 is always a hit regardless. So that's 2 hits on the orcs. 5s to save. It's a 6 and a 1. So 1 orc will die. And that just leaves the unit of mutant brutes in the truck, and they're going to stay there for now. So that brings us to the end of turn 1, where the Soul Snatcher cults are in control of 1, 2, 3 objectives. The objective in the middle, still unclaimed. But as we go into turn 2, the orcs will get the first activation because they finished activating first in first turn. Because there's not many units. At the start of turn 2, is there going to be a random event on a 5+? No. Now the orcs get the first activation, and I was torn between going first with the jetpack orcs or Odgit and the goblins. Odgit has got a spell which, if it goes off, inflicts a wound AP4 deadly 3. So if that works, it will kill one of those bikers outright, and then we've got the goblins that could shoot at them, which would be 10 shots hitting on 4s. But I think I've decided to go for the jetpack orcs, rightly or wrongly. They're going to charge, because ordinarily they get 2 attacks, but they are furious, so they'll get 3 attacks each, and that'll be 15 attacks hitting on 4s. So let's see how that works out for them. They've charged in, 15 attacks hitting on 4s. That's not great. 1, 2, 3, 4 hits. We'll spend an underdog to turn a 3 into a 4 to make it 5 hits. But that's a lot of 1s and 2s and 3s. 5 saves needed of 5+. That's 2 saves, so that will kill 1 outright. But if I spend an underdog bonus to turn the 5 into a 4, it will be an extra wound inflicted for the purposes of morale tests and winning and losing the combat. So I think I will do that. Striking back, one of the models has got a heavy hammer, which is 1 attack which will hit on a 5, but it's blast 3 if it hits. It misses. And 1 more attack from a regular close combat weapon hitting on a 5, which misses. So the orcs definitely win the combat. The bikes now need to take a morale test on a 5+, which passes, but I'm going to spend an underdog bonus on that to make it fail. So that way the bikes become pinned and the orcs will have to fall back an inch. Karlov and his retinue had advanced again. Karlov is going to try and cast Hypnosis again. So this will need a 4+. That casts. No point using an underdog bonus on it to turn it into a 4 because it needs a 4. So his retinue and himself, because he's part of the same unit, and also those acolytes because they're within 12 inches. You pick 2 friendly units within 12 inches. They get +1 to defense next time they take hits. And now Karlov and his neophytes are good. Well, certainly the neophytes. Karlov's pistol's out of range, but the neophytes are going to shoot at Brainbasher. We've got a mining laser which will hit on a 4. That's a hit. AP 3, so this is going to need to be a natural 6 to save. Oh, I saw a 6, but it's gone to a 5, and I can't turn that into a 6 because it would have to be a natural 6 to save because of AP 3. They're 5 up armor. So, yeah, 1 orc dies to a mining laser, then 4 rifle shots hitting on 4s. That is 3 hits, 6 underdog points left. I think I will turn one of those 4s into a 3 so it misses. No AP, so 5s to save. No, 2 more orcs die, so 3 orcs die from that round of shooting. They're still above half strength, so they don't need to take a leadership test. Brainbasher has advanced, and him and his boys are going to shoot at those acolytes. For a moment I contemplated putting them into the neophytes, but the acolytes haven't activated yet, and there's 2 hand flamers in there, and they could well be within hand flamer range. So we are going to shoot at the acolytes. 16 shots, hitting on 6s because the acolytes are in cover. Everything misses. There's not a single 6 in there. Not a single 6. Could spend an underdog bonus to turn a 5 into a 6, which would then become a hit, but it wouldn't generate any extra shots. We'll do that. Ordinarily a 5 up save, but 4 up courtesy of the psychic spell. That saves. I'm going to spend an underdog bonus to turn it into a 3 so it doesn't save. So the acolytes will need to take a morale test again on a 4+. And again, I'm going to spend an underdog point, and this time that is going to fail. So the last remaining acolyte is pinned. The grinder truck has rushed around the corner, but not quite close enough to get into contact for a charge for Brainbasher and his boys. The last activation for the orcs is Odgit and the goblins. They're going to advance, threading their way through those walls, those ruined walls. Now Odgit is going to try and cast Death Bolt, psychic spell, ordinarily a 5+, but we'll go off on a 4+. We hope. This is Odgit we're talking about. It passes! So that is target an enemy unit within 6 inches, i.e. the bikers, takes 1 hit with AP 4 and deadly 3. So this will have to be a natural 6 to save, otherwise one of those bikers dies. That's a fail, so one of the bikers dies, and we have to take the wounded one off first. And then Odgit is going to shoot at the last remaining biker, as are the goblins, and unfortunately this is not Warhammer 40,000 9th edition, so you can't simply walk through walls when you are infantry. So one of the goblins couldn't quite make it through the wall, so because of that he can't see the target. So one of the goblins won't be able to shoot. So we'll do Odgit first, 1 shot, we'll hit on a 5, because he's a bad shot, because he's an orc. It hits, 5 up save. Fails, so that's a wound on that last remaining biker, because they're tough 3. And now 9 shots from the goblins. These are good shots, so they will hit on 4s. Oh yeah, now we get the 6s out. That's 6 hits, 6s to save, sorry, 5s to save. It's 1 save, the rest all fail, so that last remaining biker is taken down. And you know what, thinking about it, it would have been funnier if they'd have charged, all those goblins clambering over those bikes. But we shot at them, so there we go. Right, Soul Snatcher Cult's next activation. Soul Snatchers have rushed over. They are fast and they have got Strider, so they can completely ignore the penalties for going over that rough terrain, the craters. Finally, the mutant brutes have got out of the truck and charged the orcs. I can't see anything in the rules that says you can't charge when you get out of a vehicle. It just says you can only move a maximum of 6 inches. So they have charged into the orcs, starting with the 4 that have got heavy picks. These are 2 attacks each, hitting on 3s. 6s are rending. Not that that really matters because they're AP 1 anyway. There's no 3s, so I can't turn any 3s into 2s to make them miss. So that's 5 hits in total. 5 saves of 5 up needed. 5 saves of 6 up needed because of the AP. So none of those pass. 5 orcs will die. And I forgot to pile in the orcs. As the defender, they're allowed to pile in to the enemy. So we'll just simply take the ones off from the back. And finally the pick hammer, which is 1 attack, which will hit on a 3. That's a miss. Brain Basher is going to attack back. He gets 2 attacks with his Ultra Claw, which will hit on a 4+. That's 1 hit, 1 miss. AP4, so this will need to be a 6 to save, which fails, so one of the brutes dies. 2 attacks from his attack beast. Both miss. 1 attack from the orc with a close combat weapon. Hits. 4 up save. Fails, so another brute dies. Just remembered, mutant brutes have got regeneration. 5 ups. One of them comes back. Right, so the orcs lost the combat, 5 wounds inflicted to 1, so they're going to need to take a morale check. They're definitely below half strength. If they fail, they will be routed. 4+ needed. Boss Brain Basher bellows in defiance. He's going to stand firm. Those mutant brutes are going to have to back off an inch. And lastly, the unit of acolytes, I'll say unit, the last remaining acolyte just simply unpinned himself. Itself, whatever it might be. Anyway, so at the end of turn 2, Soul Snatcher cults hold objective 4 and objective 3. Objective 1 is currently unclaimed in the centre, but the orcs now hold objective 2. Those jetpack orcs are within 3 inches. As we go into turn 3, the orcs will again get the first activation because they finished activating first in this turn. At the start of turn 3, is there going to be a random event on a 5+? Yes, there is. What's it going to be? 25. See what that is. Okay. 25 is Dark Clouds. Select 1 random table quarter. All of the units within that table quarter get -6 inches range when shooting. Right, managed to find a D4, so we'll go 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 2. So -6 inch range if you're in that table quarter up there. Brain Basher has advanced into this building, trying to get out of charge range of that truck, or at least make it so that the truck can't charge him by getting through any of these gaps, because there's a lot of Soul Snatchers en route to Boss Brain Basher. If it was any other game, I might consider conceding with the orcs at the minute, because yeah, Boss Brain Basher probably isn't going to last that much longer, if I'm perfectly honest, with all of those Soul Snatchers heading towards him. And they've only got 2 of the units, but that's not what he would do. He's an orc, he's going to fight on. Right, and that said, he's going to shoot at those neophytes. He'll be hitting on 5s for a change because the neophytes are not in cover. He gets 4 shots, the orc with him gets 2 shots with the carbines, hitting on 5+ because they're bad shots. Everything misses. I've got 3 underdog points to spend. I think I'll spend 1 to turn one of those 4s into a 5, so we do at least get 1 hit. This will be a 5-up save. No, 4-up save, because they're still under the effects of Karlov's spell from the last turn. So they get +1 to the save rolls. Like that. If I spend an underdog point on that to turn it into a 3 to make it a fail, that'll leave me with 1. And I've got a sneaky feeling I'm going to need those underdog bonuses, so we'll let that stand. Hey ho, hindsight's a wonderful thing, but it's not as good as foresight. The mutant brutes are going to charge Brainbasher, piling into that doorway. Everything's within 2 inches, so they get to fight. We'll start with the pick hammer, which is 1 attack, which will hit on a 3. That's a hit. 6s are nothing special, and looking at it, that's deadly 3, so I probably should have gone last with that. Oh well, you live and learn. This is going to need to be a 6 to save. That's a fail, so the orc dies. But yeah, if I'd have thought about it, I'd have put the regular pick hammers in first, because that would have killed Brainbasher. But even now we've got 6 attacks which will hit on 3s. That's 4 hits. And I can't use an underdog bonus on any of the hits to make them miss, because the lowest one is a 4, so we can turn it into a 3, it'll still hit. So that's 4 hits. These are AP1, so we need 6s to save. Boss Brainbasher is tough 3, so he needs to save at least 2 of these. And he does 2 6s. He's got 1 wound left. Right, those mutant brutes are about to be on the receiving end of a very angry orc boss. Starting off with 2 attacks from his Ultra Claw, hitting on 4s. 1 hit. We're going to use a underdog point to turn that 3 into a 4 and make it a hit. So 2 hits. These are AP4, so natural 6s needed to save. Nope. Do they regenerate? Nope. So that's 2 of the mutant brutes taken down. Let's start removing some casualties before I forget. 2 attacks from his attack beast, hitting on 4s. That's 1 hit. I'm going to use an underdog point to turn the 3 into a 4, so we get 2 hits from the attack beast as well. These are AP1, so 5's needed to save. They both save. I've got 1 underdog bonus point left. Actually, I didn't have any underdog bonus points left at this stage. I'd lost track of how many I'd used, even by using counters. So I'll show you the footage that I did shoot, but equally I did pick up on the fact that I'd used too many underdog bonus points because I wanted to make sure I got this fight right. So I'll play through the rest of the footage that I shot for this particular scene, and then you'll see that I corrected it later. I'm going to turn that 5 into a 4 so it doesn't... Yeah, the attack beast is AP1, so if I turn the 5 into a 4, yeah, so one of them will be wounded. But does it regenerate on a 5+? No, it doesn't, so we do kill another one of the mutant brutes. Which means that combat is a draw. The mutant brutes inflicted 3 wounds, the orcs inflicted 3 wounds. So that combat is a tie, which means that mutant brute has to pull back an inch. Yeah, if you look at just the basic core rules, it doesn't tell you what to do in the event of a tie, but if you check the basic rule book, it does say that in the event of a tie in terms of wounds inflicted, then yeah, neither side takes a morale test. Right, I've just been editing the footage of that fight because I wanted to make sure I got it right, and I used 1 too many underdog bonus points. So I couldn't have used the underdog bonus on the save roll for the mutant brute. So one more of them should have survived, which means there would have been fewer wounds inflicted by Boss Brain Basher, which means he does need to take a morale test. He needs a 4+. As a fail, so he is routed, and I need to put a mutant brute back into that unit as well. So they should also have been an inch further forwards, because they shouldn't have fallen back an inch because they won the combat, so now they can consolidate. And I think it's thematic that they consolidate in, slavering over their foes, their fallen enemies. Odgit and the goblins have consolidated themselves inside those ruins, and now Odgit is going to try and cast the psychic spell Warpath on a 4+. And that's a fail yet again. He's got to be the worst orc shaman ever. The Soul Snatchers have rushed forwards onto objective 1 in the centre. In response, the jump pack orcs have charged the Soul Snatchers. They have got fly, so they can ignore the intervening terrain. 2 attacks each, plus 1 attack extra for charging because they're furious, so this will be 15 attacks hitting on 4s. Total of 7 hits. No AP, so 4 up saves. Only 1 doesn't save. So 1 Soul Snatcher dies. The others will now get to attack. They get 3 attacks each, there's 4 of them left, so 12 attacks, hitting on 3s, and these are AP1 rending. Okay, so that's only 2 misses. There's 2 rendings, but they're only a 5 up save anyway, and they don't have regenerate. Yeah, I think this has been a bit foolhardy of the jetpack orcs. 10 saves at 6+. 3 6s, but yeah, that's not enough. That is the jetpack orcs wiped out. And the Soul Snatchers choosing not to consolidate. They are aware that that area is vitally important and they need to wait for their brethren to support them before they press on even further. Now, I would concede there, as the orcs, but the rules say you can concede at the start of a turn. So the grinder truck has rushed forwards. I did advance it and it couldn't see anything to shoot at, so it has simply rushed forwards. Obviously can't get close enough to charge the goblins and Odgit. Karlov and the neophytes have advanced into the cover provided by that building. Again, if they'd have gone around the corner, they wouldn't have been able to see anything, so they're just going to stop shy there for a moment. And that last remaining acolyte has simply slunk into the shadows in that building. And that is the end of turn 3. The Soul Snatchers are in control of Objective 4, Objective 3, and Objective 1. The Orcs are in control of Objective 2. As we go into the 4th and final turn, the Orcs, what's left of them, in fact we may as well call them the Goblins because they outnumber the Orcs, will get the first activation in turn 4. At the beginning of turn 4, is there going to be a random event on a 5+? No. Right, now again, I did consider conceding on behalf of Odgit, because you have to do that at the start of the turn, which means the turn has started because you do it at the start of the turn. So if he does that, he won't then have cast the psychic spell in every turn that he's been active, so he won't get his extra 50 points for completing his special objective. So then I thought, okay, well, we'll crack on, and that means we'll have to play the turn out. So there might not be any greenskins left on the table by the time we finish this. Anyway, I thought about moving them back onto the actual objective marker, and I did move the models around, and then I thought, well, if I do that, that random event is still in effect. I checked the words and it doesn't say anything about the fact that it dissipates at the end of the turn, so it's still active. So if they had moved on to that objective, they would have been in that quarter of the table, which gives them -6 inches to the range of their weapons. So I put the models back again. So now what we're going to do is Odgit is going to try and cast Crackling Bolt which is a 4+, so he'll get it on a 3+ for being Psychic 1. That's a 6. Now we get some 6s. Right, so Crackling Bolt. Target an enemy unit within 6 inches, and it rolls as many dice as models in it and takes 1 hit for each 4+ rolled. So we're targeting the Soul Snatchers. There's 4 in the unit, so we roll 4 dice. And there's only 1 4. So they'll save this on a 4+. They don't, so one of the Soul Snatchers dies. Oddgit's going to try and shoot one with his pistol, which will hit on a 5. Like that. Again, a 4 to save. Fail, so another one dies. So far, Oddgit has killed more Soul Snatchers than an entire unit of Jetpack Orcs. And we've got 6 goblins that can see the Soul Snatchers to shoot at them. So these will hit on 4+ ordinarily because they're good shots, but 5s because they half the unit of the Soul Snatchers is obscured. That's still 3 hits. And if they'd been hit on 4s, wouldn't have made any difference. 3 hits. Is anybody else rooting for the goblins to wipe out the Soul Snatchers? Yes, they do. That's 2 fails. That's the last 2 Soul Snatchers cut down by goblin shooting. That's the second unit the goblins have killed. Boo hiss, the grinder truck has advanced. It's going to shoot at the goblins cowering in that ruin. 3 shots with a heavy machine gun, normally hitting on 4s, but the goblins are in cover, so they'll hit on 5s. They'll miss. 1 shot from the heavy mining laser, likewise hitting on a 5. That does hit. Need a 6 or a goblin dies. No, 1 goblin dies. Again, thinking about the bonus points, the Soul Snatchers need to have a unit in every table quarter to get their special objective. At the moment, we've got 1 unit in that quarter, that last remaining acolyte. Karlov and his neophytes are in this bottom table quarter here. The grinder truck is in that table quarter, but they don't have a unit in this table quarter because the Soul Snatchers are dead. Which means those 2 mutant brutes are going to have to try and rush. That objective is bang smack in the centre, so they will be able to do it, but it feels a little bit like a waste. But again, we're trying to do it for the objectives, special objectives. So they are going to rush into this table quarter, so that they will have a unit in every table quarter. There. So they now have a unit in every table quarter, and at that point Karlov is satisfied that he has secured this battle zone. So we will end it there. In theory, Karlov and his men possibly could have got around, could have possibly got some shots in on the goblins, but yeah, he is a mastermind, so yeah, he's aware that a few goblins are no threat to his ultimate plans and his ultimate designs. He has secured the city, which is the plan that was made generations ago and has now come to fruition. So a victory for the Soul Snatcher cult means they get 2 more victory points for the campaign, putting them on 4, and they get 50 points to spend on reserves. They also completed their special objective, get a unit in each of the table quarters by the end of the game, so they get another 50 points for reserves. A defeat for the Orcs, their first so far in the campaign, means they get no more victory points, but they do get 150 points to spend on reserves. They did achieve their special objective, which was attempt to cast or deny a psychic spell in every turn of the game, so giving them 200 points to spend on reserves in total. Rolling for casualties, and considering how badly the Orcs were outnumbered points wise, that's quite a bit of damage they did. I mean, some of these units weren't wiped out completely. It was only the bikes and the soul snatchers that were wiped out completely. But the acolytes and the mutant brutes were both left at less than half strength, which means we need to roll for them as well. So we'll start from the top left and work our way along. Soul snatchers. They recover with no lasting injuries. The jackals, the minion bikers. They recover with no lasting injuries. The darklings, the mutant brutes. Recover with no lasting injuries. And finally, the blessed sons, the acolytes. Recover with no lasting injuries. Okay. According to the law of averages, I'm now a little bit nervous for the orcs recovery rolls. So we need to roll for these orcs who all went down like any good orcs should. Arena scrap. Right, so we've got Brainbasher's boys, and the Fly boys. Starting with Brainbasher. He recovers with no lasting injuries. His lads, Brainbasher's boys. That's cocked, but it was going to be a 3. I mean, if I just move that, oh yeah, it's definitely a 3. So they recover with no lasting injuries. And then finally, the Fly boys. They recover with no lasting injuries. Hooray, clean sweep. And of course the orcs also have their commandos and the other orc mob. They had to miss out this battle, so they will be back for the next game. So the orcs will be back up to full strength. Experience for the orcs. Odgit survived the battle and technically got 2 kills because he assisted in the destruction of the jackals, the minion bikers, and the soul snatchers. So it was him and the goblins acting as a single unit that managed to take out both of those units. So he is now on 5 experience points, which means he is leveled up. Likewise the goblins. Same thing, they got 2 kills technically, the jackals and the soul snatchers, and they survived the battle, putting them on 5 points. We'll do the goblins first because they're the easiest. They become 25 points more expensive and they get a trait. That's a 2. 2 is headstrong. They get +1 to rolls when taking morale tests. That's quite good because otherwise they're quality 6, so they'll now be passing morale tests on a 5+ instead of a 6. And for Odgit, because he's a hero, first of all we have to see what skill set he gets. 6. Pathfinder or Healer. I like that, that's quite appropriate. The dice telling the story for us. So I think we'll go for Healer. We'll go for the Healer skill set. 2, or 1 because it's a D3, so he's a chemist. Friendly units within 6 inches get +1 to morale tests when in melee. Okay, not great, but it'll do. But he also becomes 25 points more expensive. Experience for the Soul Snatcher cults. Archmage Karlov survived the battle, giving him an XP, putting him on 4 in total. Same with the Blessed Initiates, they survived, putting them on 4. The Acolytes technically survived the battle, putting them on 4. The Holy Ones, the Soul Snatchers, they killed the Jetpack Orcs, giving them an experience which puts them on 3. Grinder Truck Gamma 4 survived the battle, putting it on 3. And then finally, the Darklings, what a first appearance they had. They killed the boys, they technically killed Brainbasher as well, so that's a character kill, and they survived the battle. So that gives them 4 XP after their first game. Nobody's leveled up yet though. And the jackals don't get any XP because they didn't kill anything and they didn't survive the battle. No upgrades for existing units for the Soul Snatchers, but for reinforcements they had 115 points in the bank. So they've just spent 105 on a Brute Champion who has been upgraded with a Pet Familiar who's got the Warning Cry ability, which means when enemy units come out of ambush they can't be set up within 18 inches of him because the Pet Familiar will cry out a warning. The orcs have got 255 points to spend on upgrades and reinforcements, so I'm spending 15 points on Boss Brainbasher and I'm going to give him a cyborg body which gives him regeneration, and I think that makes sense. He's been taken out in 2 battles so far, so he's probably got a fair amount of gubbins hardwired into him. So yeah, regeneration for Boss Brainbasher. And finally for the orcs, I think what they most needed, well, they needed some units, but yeah, I think what they were most lacking is some speed. So they've got a combat cart which has been upgraded with a mega scrap machine gun and chain rocket propelled grenades for 235 points, leaving them with just 5 points left in their bank. Well, I guess we now know what it takes to beat the orcs. A massive points advantage. Anyway, right, we are now halfway through the campaign. Everybody has played everybody else once. So that's one turn of the round robin, and the campaign is going to last for 2 turns of the round robin. So now everybody's going to play everybody else again to determine the winner of the campaign. So far, the orcs are on 4 victory points, the plague disciples are on 4 victory points, the soul snatcher cults are on 4 victory points, and the poor HDF have yet to win a battle and are only on 1 victory point, courtesy of a random event. Now, what I've decided to do is, going into the second half of the campaign, each army is going to get an injection of 500 points each to try and get them whatever badly needed units they need. In terms of armies, we're actually quite level pegging at the moment. The HDF are actually slightly ahead, mainly because they've lost more games than everybody else, so they've had more points than anybody else to spend on units. They're currently sat on 1,290 points worth of units, although 70 points worth of that is going to be missing the next game. It's their special weapons squad with the flamethrowers, the hot stuff. But that still puts them on 1,220 points worth of units. Although, as I say, some of that is experience upgrades as well. Soul Snatcher Cult is currently on 1,145 points worth of units. There's no experience upgrades in there at all, and they don't have any models that are going to be missing the next game. The Plague Disciples are currently on 1,170 points worth of units, although there are some unit upgrades in there courtesy of experience, and also they're going to be missing out on 160 points worth of units in the next game because the Plague Mutant Brothers have still got to miss the next game. And then finally, the Orcs are now on 1,080 points worth of units. Again, some experience upgrades in there, but they are back up to full strength. They're going to be fighting with all of their units for the first time since the first game. They don't have any units in recovery. Right, so that was the end of the first campaign round altogether, if you like. Everybody's played everybody else. I hope you're enjoying it so far. I do feel sorry for the PDF, but hopefully they can pull something back in the second half of the campaign. Let's see what happens. I don't know when the next game is going to be. Ordinarily I film these games over the course of a weekend, but next weekend, after I'm filming this one, I'm going to be away. I'm going to meet up with Say Hi Paul, and we're going to play some Age of Sigmar. But once that's out of the way, I should be able to get another game recorded. So it might be a week or two before I get the next game filmed. Hopefully I'll get it filmed before then. But until next time, thank you very much for watching. Please continue to like, comment and subscribe. I do appreciate all of the encouragement that you keep giving me. It's great to see the messages. There's some fantastic support that we get from this community, so thank you all very much for your support, and God bless.